Today's seminar is going to focus on absolute value, and our goal for this lesson is I can determine the absolute value of a rational number and explain that it determines the distance from zero on a number line. So at this point, if you can pause the video, title this in your notebook right here, absolute value, and get your goal in there so you know what we're working towards in this lesson. And then next you will need the green foldable that I have made for you or provided to you for absolute value. And just a quick overview of how you'll put this together. So when you first get this, it will just be a full sheet of paper like this. So what you'll need to do is fold it not quite in half because you want this absolute value part to stick out. So roughly half though. You can kind of match it up with the top of the absolute value here. And then what you'll do is along these dotted lines, you'll just cut to the halfway point so that you have 3 flaps that open. So just a quick overview there with that. And let's jump in right away. So let's look at the definition first. So absolute value, what is it? Well, to put it simply, it's just a number's distance from zero on the number line. So how far away something is from zero. Not something, but a number. So let's write that down here. A number's distance from zero on the number line. So a number's distance from zero on the number line. And it will always be positive. We'll just stay with it. It will always be positive. If you're finding the absolute value of something, your answer will always be positive. There are cases if you're doing operations with absolute value that the answer that you'll end up with being negative. But if we're purely looking at absolute value, your answer will always be positive. And just an example here. So let's look at, we can just say -5, and we'll say, well, what's the absolute value of -5? Well, it's how far away that number is from zero. So if I'm thinking about that, visualizing a number line in my head, how many spaces is -5 from zero? Well, it is 5 spaces. Your answer will never be negative because we don't have negative distances. Like, for instance, you wouldn't say, I walked -3 feet. You'd say, I walked 3 feet backwards. We keep the number with it positive. Another example might be, I swam -10 feet underwater. Well, we don't say it like that. We say we swam 10 feet underwater. We know that it's negative, but since it's a distance, we can't attach a negative to it because we can't have negative distances, like I had said before. So just a quick definition of what absolute value is, and a quick example here. So let's look at a graph then and see what this looks like graphically. So it says here, use the number line to find the absolute value of 7. Now quickly, some of these numbers are missing here, so I'm just going to fill them in, and you can do the same. 3, 4, 5, and 8. So 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8 you'll need to fill in there. So like I said, it says use the number line to find the absolute value of 7. So if we're looking at that, we're going to start from 0 and look at where we're going to. Well, we're looking for 7, right? So what we're looking at is how many spaces are in between there. Well, really what's here, there are 7 units. So the absolute value of 7 is just 7. because it's 7 spaces away from 0. And number 2 down here, it says use the number line to find the absolute value of negative 4. Go ahead and try this one on your own quick. You can pause the video here and then come back to it and see if you did it correctly. So absolute value of 4, like I said, would be 0 to negative 4. And we want that to be a positive distance, remember, like I said. So it is 4 units away. So the absolute value of negative 4 is just 4. So we're looking at number of spaces. It's distance from 0. It's just 4 units. So that's what a number line representation of absolute value would look like. So let's look at some examples then where we use the absolute value notation. Now if you ever see 2 vertical bars on either side of a number, you'll know you're working with absolute value. So I'll do a few examples here, and these will probably go fairly quick. So absolute value of 12. Well, how far away is 12 from 0? It's just 12 units. Absolute value of negative 8 is just going to be 8 because it's 8 spaces. Although it's negative, your answer will still be positive like I had talked about before. So this example could be related to number 2 up here when using the number line. To find the absolute value of negative 4, we need to see how far it is from 0. So negative 8 would be 8, negative 19 would be 19, 7 would be 7, because they're just that many spaces away from 0. So what I want you to do then is try 7, 8, and 9 quick, and then come back and double check your answers. And I'll go through the last couple as well then. Okay, so you should be checking your answers now. So negative 5 would be 5, 0. Well, this is kind of a tricky case in this sense, but absolute value of 0 is just going to be 0. It's 0 spaces away from itself. How far away is it from 0? It's 0. Absolute value of 53 is going to be 53, and absolute value of negative 10 is just going to be 10. Remember, coming back to the definition with these, it's just a number's distance from 0 on the number line, how far away it is. A couple other things that I just wanted to mention. I'm going to do 2 other examples down here at the bottom, and sometimes a problem might ask you to find all values that have whatever absolute value you're looking for. So let's say we have the absolute value of b being equal to 3. So this is telling me that I want all values that will give me an absolute value of 3. Well, in this case, when you have problems like this, you're more than likely or almost always you will always have 2 answers here, because there's 2 values that could give you an absolute value of 3. One of those is a regular 3, because that's 3 spaces away from 0, and the other one is going to be a negative 3, since that's as well 3 spaces away from 0, or 3 units away from 0. So 2 cases there. And then just one last one. Let's say that the absolute value of a is equal to negative 5. So this is saying I want all values that have an absolute value of negative 5. Well, alarms should be going off in your head here, because an absolute value cannot be negative. They're always positive, since we're looking at a distance, and distances can't be negative. So in this case, you would have no solution. So that's really the long and short of absolute value. It just comes down to finding a number's distance from 0 on the number line. So that's all you're doing. Make sure that this foldable gets put into your notebook so that you can reference it in the future if you have questions with absolute value. And let's quickly come back to our goal then. So remember, we were working with absolute value today, and our goal was I can determine the absolute value of a rational number and explain that it determines the distance from 0 on a number line. If you have any further questions, you can rewatch the video, or you can always come to me for questions and I will gladly help you with those.